Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner, and today is May 2nd, 2017. So we are well underway with the melting, and we're going to start off the night with going over the River Watch data that came in today, and we're also going to be talking later in the show about your public aviation and marine forecasts. When we're not on air, you can always go to our website by going to weather.gov/Alaska and navigate to the area of your choice. And you can also still get the information off the 1-800 line by dialing 1-800-472-0391. Now let's go on to that first map that I was talking about. This is produced by our River Forecast Center, the Alaska breakup map across the state. You can see all the areas in white are going to be your frozen rivers, and the areas to the south where different shades of blue colors have shown up. These are areas that are either open, mostly open, or some open or partially open, as they call it. Now, the new data today is that we are seeing some additional breakup here along the Kuskokwim, and we have a picture there near this area where it's becoming open in this junction. So let's go on to the photo that was taken, and this was taken on May 1st, and this is a nice shot near Georgetown, like I said, along the Kuskokwim River area. All right, now let's move on to the satellite pictures, and what we're going to be focusing on is the low pressure system that's sitting here and spinning just south of the Gulf, and it's going to be moving to the north, bringing a large plume of moisture there to the southeast. You can see this curl, a very mature low pressure system, very tightly wound with a low pressure system directly below the upper center. And now further to the north, we saw some breaks across the central interior and also up towards the Brooks Range. They did start out the day, however, with some cloud cover. So this map is the infrared satellite view. So you can see that the cooler dark gray temperatures are in those cooler regions. Also across the areas of the central and eastern bearing, you see these darker cloud cover as the colder air mass is kind of being pulled behind this low pressure system. So across the western areas of the state, I'm going to put this in a visible satellite in just a moment, but this is another North Pacific system that is bringing a warm front towards Shimia. We had a weak front pass through yesterday towards Kamchatka. You see that large white plume. So let's switch over to the visible satellite. And in the morning, you cannot see the far west view, but let's take a look over at the main focus where the low pressure system is moving up towards the Gulf of Alaska. You can see the drier air mass and that this is a fully occluded system tightly wound there in the core. Isn't that just beautiful? Let me put that into motion for you so you can see that just one more time. All right, and then we'll just take a look now at the surface reflection of the system. It's a 968 millibar low with an occluded front that had made it to the coastal areas this afternoon. This brings some heavy rainfall along this boundary, along with some very strong gusts out of the southeast direction across the eastern areas of the Gulf, southeast to east across the entire boundary, with more of a northerly flow there across the Cook Inlet on the west side of this system down towards Kodiak Island. Now, like I said, the rain is just hugging along the coastal communities at this time, with winds gusting between 40 to 55 miles per hour. Along the areas across the interior, warmer conditions with benign conditions with the winds relatively light across the area. It's going to allow things to warm up quite a bit across the interior all the way to the west coast. Across the northern tier of the state, however, we're still seeing some fog across the north slope with some light snow conditions as an upper level wave just kind of propagates to the north. Across the central areas of the Bering, we have this ridge that's continuing to transverse towards the east with some showers in between the ridge and the low pressure system with northerly flow and just weak waves propagating through the flow. Now here's this low pressure system out to the west, not a very strong system, 1,000 millibars, just pulling a slight warmer air mass just into the Shimia area, not making much progress as of yet, nor will it tonight. It's just going to kind of stay in place. However, another system is going to be reinforcing that, and we'll get into that in just a moment. However, the main focus, like I said, is going to be on this low pressure system. It's going to continue to bring this front into the southeast during the overnight hours. So expect rainfall in between the amounts of 1 to 3 inches during the overnight hours. Across the Kenai as well, they're going to be on the heavier precipitation side. A little bit lighter there for Kodiak. However, they are still going to be in this rain band that's going to be propagating from the central areas of the Gulf back towards the west. Now, also beware that along the lower Yukon and also the Kuskokwim deltas, they're going to see some isolated chances for thunderstorms as they have quite a bit of moisture in the mid to lower levels. That daytime heating is going to fire off a couple of showers with isolated thunderstorms. Some isolated activity is possible across the interior locations, mainly around the mountain ranges there. And to the north, light snow will continue across the north slope. More of a lighter easterly flow across the northern tier of the state. Very light flow will continue across the central areas. Now, as we head into Wednesday, here's this next system in the North Pacific beginning to approach the Aleutians. However, it is going to stay south on Wednesday. So fairly quiet conditions. Rain is going to be diminishing there across the western waters, with the ridge slowly progressing to the east across towards the Alaska Peninsula. This is going to give a little bit of a squeeze with this low pressure system approaching Kodiak and kind of staying in place, and this ridge pressing into it. It's going to squeeze the isobars in between the two systems, and that's going to create a little bit of a stronger northerly flow, probably winds gusting between 30 and 40 miles per hour for your Wednesday. Now, across the coastal areas, they are still going to be seeing some very gusty winds for the southeast and all along the northeast Gulf Coast towards the Kenai and Kodiak Island. The winds are going to be more northerly, again, through the inlet and Shelikof Strait, and then the rain is going to be pulling into Prince William Sound. Heavy at times, gusts across the sound can be between 40 to 50 miles per hour. We'll also see as we go later into the day, the gradient is going to be squeezed just along the Kenai here. So we could see some stronger northerly flow developing possibly across Seward. However, across the Chugach, we'll see some stronger southeasterly flow. That'll downslope a lot of the precip, so areas facing the west-facing mountains will see lighter side of the precip. However, we will see winds pick up across that Prince William Sound and across Turnagain Arm, and probably the Anchorage hillside will see some winds there. While the interior areas of the state, they're going to stay fairly quiet with the winds. Moisture is going to pull to the north, and they'll see with the stronger upper level wave that accompanies this low pressure system, we'll see some precipitation across the central interior. Now, this pink area is a reflection of, in the higher elevations from 3,000 and greater in the mountains, they're going to see probably some snow mixing in with rain, possibly all snow at the mountaintops there. And then on the southeast for Wednesday, the winds will be coming down across the southeast panhandle locations. However, they are going to be an ongoing precipitation as that upper level organized system continues to spin over the Gulf. To the north, same conditions are going to persist, with fog developing in the early morning hours and continuing through much of the day. However, the long daylight hours are going to allow that fog to give way in the afternoon. So primarily just cloud cover for the afternoon with winds out of the east between 5 to 15 miles per hour and areas of fog just along the coast. Now across the western areas of the state, that's going to be the driest conditions with those gustier conditions, like I said, on the backside of the low pressure system. On Thursday, we're not going to see much shift in the low pressure system over the Gulf. What we're going to see, though, is this ridge is going to start breaking down as this next North Pacific low starts pulling this warm front. However, The ridge that's already there and ridging that's going to be coming across Kamchatka, that's going to prevent the progress of that front moving too far on Thursday. So we're thinking that we'll see some very gusty flow on the north side of the system, primarily out of the east to southeast direction across all of the Aleutians. And we'll see some rain moving into the area, however, on the lighter side of things. Now, the low pressure system will be spinning in the Gulf, but you can see it's weakened down here on Thursday to 998 millibars. So it's going to be organized but weakening through time, with showery conditions lingering across the southeast and rain continuing across the Prince William Sound and the eastern areas of the Kenai down to Kodiak Island. The front will be pushing a warmer air mass to the north all the way up towards the Brooks Range. So we'll see that mix of rain and snow just along the boundary and north. We'll see snow also continuing across the north and western coastal areas. Across the west, look for improving conditions. Again, they're going to see some breaks in the sky with some afternoon diurnal showers, and the ridging is going to persist across the eastern areas of the Bering. Possibly look out for some fog conditions as this air mass stabilizes on Thursday. Now, let's look at your temperatures for today across the southeast. They did reach temperatures into the mid-40s to lower 50s, except we did see 61 degrees at Skagway by this afternoon. All across the coast, it was primarily in the mid-40s to mid-50s, with the warmest temperatures in general across the interior areas getting up into the upper 50s. Across and north of the Brooks Range, we saw temperatures primarily 10 degrees to 20 degrees with not much diurnal change during the overnight hours. And then we saw some fairly warm temperatures across the southwest in the 40s across Bristol Bay and the Kuskokwim Delta, a little bit cooler there along the coast, with the cooler temperatures pulling across the eastern areas of the Bering. We saw mid-30s for the Pribilof Islands. And then in the lower 40s across the Aleutian Chain and the Alaska Peninsula. Temperatures for your nighttime hours are going to be persistent across the Brooks Range and north, with near freezing across the central interior, and as you head towards the coast, probably going to be moderating into the lower 40s. A little bit warmer tonight with that warm front hanging across the northern areas of the Gulf, so the cloud cover across the southern tier of the state will keep those temperatures from dropping too low. Now across the Alaska Peninsula, we're going to see that transition to cooler again, with the Pribilofs in the lower 30s near freezing, and also slightly cooler across much of the Bering in the mid-30s. Now looking at your temperatures for tomorrow, very similar regime across the state, with the warmer temperatures reaching once again in the mid-50s, at least across the state. Slightly cooler tomorrow with the clouds pulling to the north. However, we are going to see a slight warming trend across the north, with temperatures probably getting into the lower 20s along the north slope. Across the southeast, another day with temperatures in the mid-40s and 50s. Any breaks in the sun will certainly allow them to jump into the 50s real quick. Now here you see the flying weather is not going to be very good across the entire state. We have widespread IFR and MVFR conditions all the way back towards the western areas of the Bering. And then for the afternoon hours, there's not much improvement, with IFR conditions just hugging along the coastal areas along the north and west. And also the southeast will stay in IFR conditions as that occluded front starts to pull north. That'll keep conditions down. So here's your passes in more depth. We have MVFR to IFR for Anaktuvik and Adigan as well. Now, Lake Clark and Merrill Pass will start out VFR and go to MVFR, and VFR at Rainy to MVFR in the afternoon. And then Windy Pass will also go VFR to IFR. We'll start Isabel, IFR, going to MVFR. And the Mentasta Pass will be MVFR for all day tomorrow. Tenita, look for VFR quickly going to MVFR. Portage will stay IFR all day, with MVFR over at the west entrance. Chilkoot and White Pass will be in the IFR range tomorrow, and here's your freezing level across the northern areas of the Bering and across the central interior. Through the state tomorrow, we'll see that freezing level draped across towards Chilkoot and White Pass. Now, the freezing levels are going to be around 2,000 feet, climbing to 4,000 near the Dixon entrance, and slightly warmer conditions out there towards the western areas of the Bering. Now, looking at your icing, primary concerns are going to be above 3,000 feet across the Gulf and just inland, and below 3,000 feet across the north, and then across the western Bering, looking for conditions below 5,000 are possible. Now the jet stream for tomorrow is amplifying once again from yesterday with a little bit more curvature and the low pressure moving a little bit further to the east here. Now the lower levels at 9,000 feet, here's the ridge that's sliding across the central areas of the Bering with some stronger winds on either side of that ridge between 30 to 50 knots. And then the low pressure system is going to be the most significant problem for tomorrow with 50 to 60 knot southeasterly flow on the east side of that low. Again, we're going to have lighter flow for tomorrow across the interior and north areas, and you'll see that reflected at 3,000 feet as the system is quite organized with the strongest winds here at 3,000 across the Kenai. So the southeast and Kenai are going to see impacts through the day tomorrow between 30 to 50 knots with a change of wind direction there. And there's that ridge keeping things quiet across much of the Bering, stronger winds on either side of it at 3,000 feet. So here's your turbulence in summary. That low pressure system is going to cause mainly a speed shear across most of the Gulf with some speed shear as that front pulls to the north tomorrow. We'll also see some conditions there across the Bering, and the southeast will also be in the light to moderate areas through much of tomorrow. Now in just a moment, we'll be back with your marine forecast.
This is the third year of our project. We're looking at the timing of when all the plants start growing in the summer and when all the birds come to this area. The timing of when those things happen is changing with climate change. And so we're looking at the effects of those changes. The relationship with people you work with at a camp like this is really unique. In my everyday life, I don't spend this much time with anyone, with a spouse, family members, best friends.
This is a really interesting situation where you're basically thrown into the mix with essentially a bunch of strangers.
It's kind of a really cool way to get to know people because you're pretty stripped down to bare minimum. We don't have internet, we don't have phones or anything, and so all of our social interactions are just like face-to-face personal interactions.
I'm an undergrad exchange student from Sweden.
My name is Ryan Choi, and I am a PhD student at Utah State University.
I'm a postdoctoral researcher at University of Alaska Anchorage.
I'm an undergraduate researcher and field technician from Utah State University.
And I'm a master's student at Utah State University.
And I'm here now in the YK Delta to work for the summer.
Our field season is about 5 months long. We have to show up here at the tail end of winter. Everything is totally frozen. All the rivers are frozen over, there's snow everywhere, and it's a very different landscape than it looks like right now.
Our day-to-day life here, it varies quite a bit, but the one constant is that we make a hearty and sometimes elaborate breakfast. Our downtime is almost entirely dictated by the weather. So if the weather's nasty, we're inside and we can get really creative.
If you're looking at your paper and you fold it bottom to top, what might be considered hot dog style in the past life is now valley fold.
Valley fold, okay.
You didn't valley fold.
It feels like I live better out here than I do back home. When I lived in Anchorage, I was totally deprived of sauna for the whole winter. It was like, yeah, Then I come out here and there's these great saunas.
I do not take any credit for the construction of this sauna. It's entirely the bird camp who has put up the sauna and made these little niceties. We have the essential oils that you can put on the splash on the stove with water. So this is where you sit and get reborn.
Remote research camps like this are common in Alaska, and I think part of it is because in other parts of the world or other parts of the country, they'd be on the road system, they'd be easy to get to. But the other thing is that Alaska is unique because it's the only part of our country that is in the Arctic. And so it's really important to get on the ground and study these ecosystems.
Our Alaskan experience is very different than what most people think of as Alaska. This being my third season out here in the Delta and the final year of all of the project as well. For me, this is a very bittersweet summer. I am looking forward to having my summers back and being able to have more normal life again, but it is sad knowing that this is the last time that we'll be out here like this. Definitely spending a lot of time trying to cherish the last moments, the last saunas, and last time getting to experience what it's like being out here at Taco.
Happy birthday, dear Ryan. Happy birthday to you. Yay!
It was pretty smoky in here, and we couldn't really figure out until somebody saw, like, yeah, the floor is on fire. But now we have extra drainage, so.
All right, and welcome back to the show. We're going to start off with the ice edge. You can see it's kind of outlining the northern areas of the Bering. However, it continues to recede in the coming days as the warmer air mass eventually does make its way further north. However, we're not going to be seeing too much change very quickly, as we do have a cooler air mass currently on the northern perimeter there. Now, looking at your forecast across the southeast for your Wednesday, we still have very gusty and gale conditions across the northern areas. Mainly winds out of the south for your Wednesday between 25 to 30 knots. Seas across the inner channels will be 5 to 6 feet, and the outer waters will be 17 to 23 feet. So mariners, be warned, there's going to be higher gusts for your Wednesday as well. Now Thursday, we'll see a change of conditions, quite weak in comparison, with a little bit of a change of direction there across the inner channels. We'll see seas between 2 to 3 feet on that day, with the outer waters coming down to 10 to 14 feet. Looking at the western areas of the Gulf and the inlet, we'll see very strong winds across there as well tomorrow, mainly out of the north to east directions, gale force winds across the entire area for the most part. And then we'll see seas between 10 to 20 feet across those Gulf waters, and then across the Cook Inlet and Shelikof Strait, 7 to 14 feet. And then the Prince William Sound will also be high there near 10 feet. And then we'll see lighter wind speeds on your Thursday forecast. Gales, however, still across the northern areas of the Gulf, and high seas still on that day 14 to 16 feet across much of the Gulf. The Cook Inlet down to Shelikof will be between 4 to 9 feet, with seas across the Prince William Sound around 6 feet. Your Alaska Peninsula forecast for tomorrow, small craft with gales just towards Kodiak Island there out of the northwest direction. Seas on this day will be between 10 to 15 feet higher across the Pacific. Now looking at your Wednesday forecast, a little bit change of wind direction, westerly flow added in there with 30 knots, so small craft there by Kodiak and the rest of the area under small craft criteria. Now your Wednesday forecast, a very different forecast across the Aleutians there, with small crafts and a change of direction from north to becoming south out towards the western Aleutians. Seas on that day will be between 6 to 14 feet. And now we'll see a change on Thursday with directions with the low pressure coming up from the Pacific. We'll see a stronger wind out of the southeast becoming northwest to the west, and seas on this day will be between 6 to 17 feet, highest seas on the Pacific side and central Aleutians. Looking at your west forecast, we're going to be looking at a north to northwesterly flow across the area, small craft just south of Nunivak Island there. Seas on this day will be 3 to 7 feet. And looking at your Thursday forecast, a little bit change of wind direction with the two systems shifting there. We'll have a northerly flow becoming more of an east to southeast across the central areas of the Bering. And for your Arctic areas and northwest towards Kotzebue, look for an east to north flow between 15 to 20 knots. And then on your Thursday forecast, just slight change of direction there, 15 to 20 knots as well. Let's recap your forecast with this low pressure system coming up. Very strong winds around 20 to 30 miles per hour. Will gust up to 55 miles per hour, especially across the southeast and along the areas of the Gulf and coastal communities. Looking at possible isolated thunderstorms across the western areas of the state with some showers possible across the interior. Across the northern locations, very cold still, light snow and fog would be creeping back in with a warm front moving into the western area of the Aleutians and then weakening into your Wednesday. High pressure will be the primary weather pattern across the eastern Bering, and we'll see low pressure still lingering across the Gulf, bring gusty conditions for the northeast coast back towards Kodiak Island. And we'll see that rain pulling into the north for the central interior on Wednesday with continuing easterly flow across the north coast, light snow activity, and winding down across the southeast. However, we will see gusty winds on your Wednesday between 20 to 35 miles per hour and showers continuing through your Thursday all across the coastal areas as that low pressure sits and lingers in the Gulf communities. We'll see lighter wind speeds as this system weakens in place with some activity, continuing showers across the central interior and north. Low pressure system will just skirt the area of the Aleutians on your Thursday, keeping things mostly dry across the Bering. Have a great night, and thanks for staying with us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX Brief for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.